Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the Liberty Call for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Hope everybody's having a good day out there. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I had to run down to Colorado Springs to get an estimate on a larger or a fuel tank for the bed of my truck. So, because unfortunately, even with a 26-gallon tank in my my big old monster truck, when you're pulling a fifth wheel behind it, you only get about 10 miles a gallon, maybe 12 if you're lucky. So, 26 gallons goes pretty quick, especially, living out in the middle of nowhere, like where we are and a lot of the places we like to travel to. So I had to take it down. They wanted to measure the bed to make sure everything was okay. So it seemed like a little bit of extra work for me, but hey, the bright side was able to stop at Whataburger on the way back. So I've got some Whataburger waiting upstairs when I finish this. So I'm going to try to keep this pretty quick. And I don't think I've had a Whataburger sandwich in I've been to Houston in over 2 years now. So it was probably March of 20 when all this madness was getting started. And it's probably the last time I enjoyed some of that delicious Texas food. So anyways, you didn't come here to hear about my dinner, what I plan on eating for dinner. So good day in the market. If you're only looking at 1 day at a time. So things look pretty good today. So let's dive in and take a peek at the indexes for this week or for today. The Dow Jones was up 1.34%, closed at 32,654. It was up 400 points. The S&P 500 was up 2.02%, closed at 4,088. The NASDAQ was up 2.76%, closed at 11,984. Small caps are up almost 3%. The VIX retreated another 4.99% today. It's currently sitting at 2610. Moving down to the other Americas, Canada was up 1.41, Brazil up 0.51, Mexico was up 0.78. Heading over to Europe, nothing but greens. We had greens in Germany, UK, France, the Euro stocks, Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Portugal, Belgium, Austria, Sweden, Denmark, both the Russian exchanges, and Poland. All of those are up. I don't see the only one I see up less than 0.5% or up. Excuse me, let's start over. The only one I see up less than 1% are Brazil at 0.51. And where was the other one? Was it Sweden or Switzerland at up 0.5 and the UK up 0.72. Everything else was up more than 1%. Some of these up more than 2%. Heading down to the Asian markets, starting with Japan, they were up 0.42. Australia up 0.27. New Zealand was actually down 0.35. Shanghai up 0.65. The SCSE component up 1.23. The China A50 up 1.3. The DJ Shanghai up 0.84. And the Hang Seng up 3.27%. Also, the Taiwan weighted was up 0.98. So, across the globe, it looked like other than a few anomalies here and there, most of the markets were up. So that is, for today, some good news. I'm sure that makes people panic a little bit less. For those who are in the investment business, today's just a reprieve from where we're headed. So don't get too excited because, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be a long lasting. Unfortunately, with all this inflation and the things we have to do to correct it, it's just going to be a rough go of it for a while. So, all right, well, let's dive into today's market recap. Dow racks up gains as chip rally powers tech. Shrink that down. The Dow racked up gains Tuesday, supported by a chip-led rally in tech as better than expected retail sales data, pointing to a strong consumer revived bullish bets on Wall Street. Tech climbed more than 2%, led by semiconductors as AMD and NVIDIA racked up gains. AMD jumped 8% after Piper Sandler upgraded the chipmaker to overweight from neutral following the recent pullback. Big tech was also in the ascendancy, shrugging off a fresh climb higher in treasury yields, following signs of strength in the consumer after U.S. retail sales rose more than expected in April. The Commerce Department said Tuesday that retail sales rose 0.9% last month, in line with economist forecasts. The Retail Sales Control Group, which is filtered into U.S. GDP, rose 1% as well above expectations for a 0.5% rise. Quote, April retail sales rose solidly and showed no sign that the consumer is cracking under the weight of inflation, higher interest rates, or lack of stimulus payments, said Jeffrey said in a note. Strong economic data arrived just after the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell pledged to keep hiking rates until inflation cools. Well, it's good that he's saying that. The true test will actually be when we hit some bumps in the road. Will the Fed cave in and be cowards and lower interest rates and revive quantitative easing? If they don't do that, then I think we're on the short path to getting back on track. If they waffle and go back the other way, all that's going to do is just drag this out even longer and exaggerate this what we're going through right now. Quote, we need to see inflation coming down in a convincing way. Until we see that, we will keep going with rate hikes, Powell said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. The Fed chief stressed that the U.S. central bank, quote, wouldn't hesitate to go beyond the neutral rate, the rate that neither slows nor grows the economy if needed to achieve price stability. Walmart, meanwhile, kicked off the wave of quarterly reports from retailers with first quarter results that fell short on the bottom line, pressured by soaring costs. The supermarket giant also cut its guidance on second quarter and full year growth, sending its shares more than 11% lower. Home Depot ended up more than 1% after delivering improved guidance following quarterly results that beat on both the top and bottom lines, underpinned by strong demand. Take-Two Interactive Software reported mixed quarterly results and guidance that fell short of estimates, which was driven by the impact of Ukraine-Russia conflict. But this was, quote, not a surprise, and the company noted no material changes to its long-term projections, end quote. Credit Suisse said in a note. The stock ended up more than 11%. Citigroup surged more than 7% to lead banking stocks higher after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway took a $3 billion stake in the bank during the first quarter. JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo were up more than 3%. So some good news today. It looks like retail is doing fairly well right now, so that is certainly some good news. All right, moving on. Oil falls 2% on Powell comments, hopes for Venezuelan supply. After hitting 7-week highs, oil prices slumped 2% on Tuesday as Reuters reported that the United States could ease some restrictions on Venezuela's government, raising hopes that the market could see some additional supplies. Prices also fell after the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell warned the economy could be hurt by attempts to reduce inflation. Duh. You got to go through a little. It's kind of like getting back in shape. You got to get on the treadmill or on the the exercise bike. And it's painful at first, but once you get past it, it's, you get back, in some good condition, and it's not as big of a deal. For the first time since May of 2020, the Brent International benchmark settled below West Texas Intermediate crude. Refiners worldwide have scrambled to find alternative energy supplies after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. U.S. reserves are falling, and that has raised prices for U.S.-based crudes, said Andrew Lippo, president of Lippo Oil Associates in Houston. Brent crude fell $2.31 or 2% to settle at $111.93. WTI fell $1.80 or 1.6% to settle at $112.40 a barrel. Powell suggested there could be some economic pain involving in bringing inflation down. The U.S. central bank will, quote, keep pushing to tighten U.S. monetary policy until it's clear that inflation is declining, he said. Quote, some of those comments tempered buying enthusiasm on the oil slide, said Phil Flynn, an analyst at Price Futures Group. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration will authorize U.S. oil company Chevron Corp to negotiate with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government as soon as Tuesday, Reuters reported, citing sources. There is no final U.S. decision yet on renewing Chevron's current limited license to operate in Venezuela, the source said. Oil prices have generally been rising as Russian supply is squeezed by bans from several countries and an economic downturn due to broad sanctions on Moscow imposed by the United States and its allies. Let me stop there. I don't know if the Russians are really feeling it as much as the West claims. I mean, the ruble is higher today than it was when this all started. They're still selling oil. They're just going around OPEC, and they're selling to India and China. So, I mean, yes, they're selling at a discount, but they're still selling their oil, and well above market rates from several years ago. So, again, I don't know if us going through pain is really doing anything to the Ruskies. Oil prices Russian production dropped by 9% in April, and the country, part of OPEC Plus group, produced far below levels required under a deal to gradually ease record output cuts made during the worst pandemic in 2020. This month, non-Russian deliveries into Polish port of Gdansk hit the highest in at least 7 years as refiners in East Germany and Poland switched. Quote, ultimately, this is a supply-side story, end quote, said Farad Razakwada, analyst at City Index. Quote, unless OPEC and its allies ramp up production and fast, it's difficult to see how prices can go down meaningfully, end quote. EU foreign ministers failed on Monday in their effort to pressure Hungary to lift its veto on proposed oil embargo, but some diplomats now point to a May 31st summit at the moment for agreement on a phased ban on Russian oil. U.S. crude and gasoline stocks fell last week, according to market sources, citing American Petroleum Institute figures on Tuesday. U.S. government data is due on Wednesday. So a little bit of a retracement in the oil price, nothing significant. For me, I think, personally, my own personal belief is that we will see inflation recede across the board when energy prices go back down. And when oil gets back to, I think a week or two back had, done some quick math, and, probably a barrel of oil should be around, 60 to $80. And when we get back into that range, I think we'll probably start to see, a few months after the fact, prices stabilize and hopefully recede a little bit. That'd be really, really nice. All right, last article here. Strong U.S. retail sales manufacturing output boost economic outlook. U.S. retail sales rose strongly in April as consumers bought more motor vehicles amid an improvement in supply and increased spending at restaurants, providing a powerful boost to the economy at the start of the second quarter. The broad rise in retail sales reported by the Commerce Department on Tuesday suggested demand was holding strong despite headwinds from high inflation, souring consumer sentiment, and rising interest rates. It assuaged fears of an imminent recession. The economy's underlying strength was underscored by other data showing production at factories accelerated in April. Quote, the strong retail sales should limit concerns over downside risks to growth and keep Fed officials firmly focused on raising interest rates to address too high inflation, end quote, said Matthew Massacotti, an economist at Citigroup in New York. Quote, at some point, rising prices will damp consumer demand and slow inflation, but for now, the strong tailwind from nominal income growth and available consumer credit is driving demand, end quote. Retail sales rose 0.9% last month. Data from March was revised higher to show sales advancing 1.4% instead of 0.5% as previously reported. April's increase in retail sales, which reflected both strong demand and higher prices, was in line with economists' expectations. Sales rose 8.2% on a year-on-year basis. Excuse me. Retail sales are mostly comprised of goods and are not adjusted for inflation, which appears to have peaked. Again, slow down with the peaking of inflation. All you do is make yourself look stupid when you have to go back and someone reads this article 2 months from now. Consumer price inflation increased 8.3% year on year in April. The increase in retail sales was led by receipts at auto dealerships, which rebounded 2.2% after falling 1.6% in March. That offset a 2.7% decline in sales at gasoline stations. Prices at the pump retreated from record highs in April. They have, however, since surged to an average all-time high of $4.52.3 per gallon as of Tuesday, according to AAA. Excluding gasoline, retail sales rose 1.3%. Receipts at bars and restaurants, the only services category in the retail sales report, increased 2%. Clothing store sales gained 0.8% as many workers returned to offices. Online store sales advanced 2.1%. Yeah, probably all those people have been sitting at home working from their laptops, probably couldn't button their pants anymore and had to go out into Kohl's and get themselves some new slacks and dresses and things like that. So, yeah, sitting around being lazy isn't the best thing. Sometimes getting up, walking around is a good idea. There were also strong gains in sales at electronics and appliance retailers as well as furniture stores, but sales at building material and garden equipment and supply stores dipped 0.1%. Sales at sporting goods, hobby, musical equipment, and bookstores fell 0.5%. And there's a little more here. You can read this at your leisure. It's attached in the show notes, so read that whenever you get a chance. So, there's not always bad news. So there is good news. We're still spending money in the economy, even though we're spending more than we like. Several years from now, once all the bad things have been ridded from our world, we'll look back on it and say, it wasn't. Well, yeah, it was probably pretty terrible, but is what it is. All right. Well, that's everything I had for today. I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. We'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday for Hump Day. And if anyone needs anything from me, please go to dsafinancialgroup.com. All my contact information is there. If you want to send me an email, book a meeting, or drop me a phone call, feel free to do so. And hopefully the Astros will have a better game tonight. They started at about 5:10 Mountain Time, so about 50 minutes from now. It was a shame what happened to Odorizzi last night. I mean, he's been pitching, really. I mean, other than his first few starts, he's been really doing. His last 4 or 5 starts have been really good. So, it looked like he probably tore his Achilles, but there wasn't a whole lot of news earlier this morning when I was fishing sports news. But let's cross our fingers and wish some healing thoughts to Mr. Odorizzi. Hope he's back soon. I mean, Astros are stacked when it comes to pitching, so I mean, I'm not really worried about that. But you hate to lose a good arm from a seasoned veteran who we could certainly use down the stretch at the end of the year. So, all right, well, everyone have a great night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.